Hi, welcome. Welcome to the Maximum Mom podcast. Thank you so much for joining us today. And I'm Elise Buie, the host of the Maximum Mom podcast. And today I'm so excited to welcome my friend Rachel Clar from Interconnected Us. Hey, Rachel.
Hi, Elise. So happy to be here. Thank you for having me.
I'm so excited you're here. I have to tell you, I love your polka dots. That is so fun.
I just wanted to be like Facebook presentable.
Yeah, well, polka dots is definitely it. I love it. Okay, well, first, I always like to just get this part out of the way. Just tell us who's in your family. We are the Maximum Mom podcast. So,
Yeah,
just tell us what your family is like, and then we'll get into the other things.
you got it. All right. So I've got two boys. They are 12 and 14. The 14-year-old is Asher. The 12-year-old is Zachary. And they are opposite as can be, and they are delightful. I am so blessed.
Oh,
So yeah,
I
the
love
older
that.
one's away at overnight camp, and the little one and I are just having such a ball. It's just the three of us though in my house.
I
Yeah.
love that. Overnight camp is so fun. Oh my gosh.
Oh, he's living his best life.
Yeah. I mean, we can talk about this later, but I am genuinely thinking about starting mom camp because as I'm watching all these kids go off to camp, we were huge into camp as a family. Like we went to
Oh yeah.
sleepaway camp in Tennessee. I was the office manager for a while, also worked in the kitchen because, I had to figure out how to pay for all these kids to go to sleepaway camp. So I had to
Yeah.
go work there. Life changing. Like I'm a huge fan of camp. And then I was like, wait a minute, why do we moms not have camp? Like,
I love that. And we definitely need to talk offline.
yeah.
I have something I want to share with you, but I won't do it on the podcast.
Okay, fair enough. Okay, well, tell us about your business.
Oh yeah. So Interconnected Us is a startup. It's something I began late last year, and it is building masterminds for women lawyers. So I put women into groups of, roughly 8 women, and they are with their professional cohort. So I've got in-house counsel with in-house counsel, small firm owners with small firm owners, and that sort of thing. And the point is, we're creating a trusted, safe space where you can discuss, you can get custom feedback that you can't get anywhere else. So it really helps these women leverage their time because they've got a, instead of an issue going unaddressed for a long time, they've got a place that is trusted, super bound by confidentiality, and you've got a room full of women who understand how you who walk in your shoes and give you their take.
I love that.
Yeah.
Well, and I participate, so I must put that out there in Interconnected Us. And it has been really amazing to meet different attorneys from different places, different areas of the law, and understand and see what we're all struggling with. Some things super common, super shared, and then other things super unique. And I'm
Yeah.
like, oh, cool. We're talking about what? Wind power now? Like, I don't get to talk about wind power and solar
Right.
power and how that might impact things. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah. And then
cool.
the challenge is to be an attorney practicing in that space versus yours and how you get to bounce ideas off one another. So it's just amazing because there's value in being with, you want some level of similarity among the members, but you also want some level of diversity. And I think the one that you're in is absolutely going beautifully in terms of people at different able to give a lot of insight, but understand each other as well. Like there's a
Right.
really important balance there.
Now, what in the world made you start this? Like, I mean, here you are juggling life as a mom, a lawyer. I mean, you were just like bored one day and was like, okay, time to start a business.
I was bored. There was a number of things at once. So it's so hard for me to answer that question succinctly. But I guess I would say the last 5 years I've been working in the solar industry and really realizing that while that was advancing my values, because I care deeply about the environment I have for my whole life, I was an activist in high school. It wasn't bringing out what I love to do the most, which is, personal growth, uh, connecting people on a more like literal level, like networking, and you should meet this person, and you two can help each other for your goals. But really, on a deeper level, this idea that we are all each other's keeper, and just really so many lessons there. So anyway, I had a life experience where I was exposed to masterminds myself, with my ex-husband, just being his spouse. I had the privilege of being in a mastermind group briefly. And I just, at the time, that it was such a shame that it wasn't available to professional women like myself. That was because he's an entrepreneur. I had access to a world that he's a part of as his spouse, but it just seemed so unfair. And I just so understood the value that when you get people together in a curated space with norms about how the conversation goes and how respect is maintained, in particular with us alphas who might bristle at getting advice or told what to do. We take advice in a very particular way, and so it's such a great use of my time. Like I recognize that me participating, it was like, for that little bit of time I'm in those meetings, I get a whole room full of opinions about my challenge, and so too to others. I just saw what's going on with women in our industry and felt that it was something that they need to get ahead.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I think when you talk about women in our industry, I mean, one of the things that I see, and it really just kind of breaks my heart a lot, is the deep unhappiness in a lot of
Yes.
women in our
Yes.
industry and just in our world and, ecosystems of things. Like I'll go on a Facebook group and there'll be like a comment about something or a post about something, and there will be hundreds of comments of unhappiness. And
Yes.
I am really blown away by
Yeah.
the feelings and the almost despair, I would say, I read and I see. And because of that, I end up talking to a lot of people and then having those deeper conversations with people and really digging in and understanding what is going on. Our profession just, I mean, we are at a struggle. I said something to my husband recently. I'm like, we are on the struggle bus as women lawyers, big time.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. A struggle bus. And I think it's, from where I sit, it seems like it's, there's so many different factors contributing to that, of course, like the pandemic and this epidemic of loneliness and all of that. And, social media and this constant flow of stimulation and just code switching in our mind as we go from one, noticing one thing to another, trying to filter all the noise. But I also think as lawyers, part of how we self-selected to go to law school and part of what the profession breeds in us, I mean, before we even get to sexism, racism, and all of that, just like the personality of someone who goes to law school. Like, from what I understand, the number one character trait of lawyers is skepticism. And, then we go to school and we're trained to worry, to manage risk and to argue. And those traits might be very beneficial in the American legal system, right? To advance as a lawyer, but you're also a human. And so, I mean, just taking the arguing, for example, like this binary that, Elise, if you and I have a conflict, like, this binary that one of us has to win. But the reality is in real life, outside of practicing, right, both can be true. You have your perspective, I have mine. I mean, just one of many examples, but that makes it very hard to be a grown-up lawyer with grown-up healthy relationships.
Yes.
Because you're just used to someone winning. And that's just one of many patterns that concern me, that I just think that being in a group is very healing, gives us options, and gives people a platform to, like, you can be so deep in your own perspective on something, but you get a room full of people being like, well, the other person could be thinking this, and you've been there, right? Like, you understand that, like, talk people down.
It makes all the difference, I think, to get that perspective. But also, I think, to your point of developing community and developing connections that are deeper and that are
Yeah.
not these superficial, connections where it's all, an Instagram reel of, whatever.
Right.
And
Right.
where it's really, you get to come and show up. And I mean, maybe you don't have your makeup on and you're, a mess, a total hot mess that morning, but you're going to show up and you're going to be there. And, for the other people in the group. And I mean, I think that alone is a big deal. Like having the
Right.
other
Yeah.
people there and expecting you to be there. And you know what I mean? Like just
Yeah,
having it be a real deeper connection.
I
I think
appreciate that. Thank you. And yeah, I was going to say, like, I mean, there's someone who shows up in her puppy pajamas.
not know who that would be.
I don't know either. But it's like, one thing I've noticed is like, I see a lot of aversion from women lawyers to talk about the V word, and the V word in this situation means vulnerability.
Wow.
And it's like, that's another, and I don't mean it to be critical of women lawyers in the profession, right? Like, we're killing it out there. We're amazing. Like, that's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to help this group, that we're both a part of. Many of us went into it to prove something, or because we care about justice or whatnot. And as women, we might have been, I mean, and obviously you and I are just white women, but we've been marginalized in some way or multiple ways. And, we want to, assert our voice. We want to do what's right and so on. But I'm concerned in the profession as a whole, this is not just women, that we need to put on such a brave face all the time that it can be very hard for some people to take it off. And that too can just be so, I mean, being vulnerable, I appreciate in a court of law is weakness, right? But outside of it, is how we connect. I mean, it's mutual, like self-disclosure is what breeds connection. And so,
Absolutely.
if we're constantly have our mask on so that we look, social media joyful and so on, externally, like, I mean, forget social media, but just with our peers, if we're not really willing to be real, I mean, then our own experience, our own like humanity shrinks. And so that's a piece of that I want to combat, I really want to help you get what you need.
Well, and I have to tell you, I'm going to challenge something you said. I actually think vulnerability is your greatest strength in the courtroom and in law.
In a courtroom as well, and in law. Okay, tell me more. What do you mean by that?
Absolutely. I mean, I think when you go, and especially, I mean, I think of my prior days, doing jury trials in, bazillion years ago, being able to connect with a jury as a real human was 100% my superpower. Like, just going in and being like, oh, I'm having a dumb blonde moment. Like I didn't do that, like not making it be this like perfect show. And it was, I'd have these usually male, much older attorneys as my opponents who are, all buttoned up, it's all perfect. And they came across so stuffy. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I love that. I totally understand what you're saying, that like your vulnerability, like it's your relatability, it's your humanity in that way with a jury. Right.
And
what I meant was vulnerability might be a boogeyman to opposing counsel, something that they could exploit. But I totally appreciate to an audience. I mean, you do tons of speaking engagements, and I'm sure, I mean, it's what I loved about you instantly, like just putting yourself out there and being authentic. But you're a unicorn of, in that way. There's a lot of people that really can't do that, and because of their trauma, because of their childhoods.
Well, and I think our profession just runs with that. Like we just, instead of like trying to open people up and help them understand how their authenticity and their vulnerability will be such a powerful force as a lawyer, because it will make them more relatable and all those things. We try to button them up more. The profession, I think, just, like you don't want to admit when you make a mistake, or you go through all this craziness. But I see it as us moms too. Like you'll see a mom, they'll being like, oh, I'm such a bad mom. I didn't bake whatever for the bake sale. And I'm like, what? Like, is your kid alive? Like, did they show up for the bake sale? That was a win. Like, I mean, totally.
Are you saying like as moms, it's the criticism from others or what we do to ourselves, or both?
I think it's both. I think it's really both.
I definitely agree. And do you think it's different? I mean, you were divorced in the past. Do you think it's different for women who go through that chapter?
I mean, that was probably hard for me to say in that. I mean, I think that I had that same voice in my head early on in my momhood while I was married. But I think post divorce, I was actually freed by a lot of that, because I was like, there's only so much this one girl can accomplish in 24 hours. And, at the
Yes.
time I had 4 young children, in all these different directions. And I'm thinking, I'm showing up, you're alive, you're fed, like you have clothes on. I mean, we are just like winning the parenting game here.
Elise, you're such an inspiration, and your mindset. I mean, it's your mindset that I'm just so fascinated by. Like, your success is secondary. It's like your mindset to be in that situation and to pull yourself together and do what you need to do. But I don't know, you have such a joyful way about you. Like, it's fascinating to me that you were able to, get the practice to where it is, with such a challenging chapter.
Yeah, well, I definitely think, and I know this in starting your own business. I mean, I think mindset is 90% of the game.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Isn't it amazing how it's like a lifelong sport? Like, I was looking at one of my competitors who says that she can kind of cure you of anxiety, in a matter of weeks or months. And it was like, I mean, I meditate at the Rochester Zen Center, and there's people there that are in their 70s, and they'll say openly, like, the meditation gives you a way to relate to your anxiety, but you don't cure
Exactly.
yourself of it,
No,
you
well,
know?
I mean, your anxiety could be your superpower. Do you know what I mean? I mean, it can
Yeah,
be something that is very powerful in how you are coming out to the world. And I think, to your point, it's how you're relating to that
yeah.
anxiety.
Yep. Yep.
Because,
Right. Right. Like, it is, I mean, it's a superpower in the profession, right? Letting us anticipate, the
oh,
outcomes
yeah.
we don't want. But I agree. Like, I mean, for me, that's been a really important lesson, and a place that I continue to kind of go to that well and check in. How I relate to my own, challenges, like anxiety, including anxiety,
Yeah.
for sure. But I am moving the needle. It's amazing.
Oh, it's so powerful. Well, tell me, I mean, as you started this business, I mean, obviously you have these 2 teenagers, or, preteen teenagers at
Yeah.
home, and you're a single mom now. So, I mean, you've got that dynamic. I mean, what was that like for you, like in managing your time and dealing with things? Because I think a lot of people who listen to this podcast, they're maybe in the early stages of running their law firm, also having children, trying to negotiate all that. And I think time becomes such a huge
Oh, I
piece of.
love when you post about it. I mean, I love when I see your posts about it, because it is your most precious. And at least for me, when I left corporate, went off on my own, there was, intellectually, I knew that my time is valuable and so on. But, maybe because I was working, I wasn't paid by the hour, it was a salary position. I think there was a journey I went on about how valuable is my time and how am I allocating it. And I probably, like you and I have discussed in our group, like delegating is a lifelong journey, dealing with your anxiety is a lifelong journey, but also how I manage my time. And that goes to boundaries and where I'm willing to say no to things. So I have had a huge lesson around that. I mean, like you, I'm a huge networker. I've made so many friendly, peers, colleagues, new friends in our industry. Um, and all of these conversations have been incredible, but that's just one of many examples. Like, is that what I should do during my limited work time? And I love it. I get a lot of joy from it, but okay, well, that's great. How does this relate to what you're trying to put out there and the boundaries that you set or don't set in that space? Like, just learning. I mean, I just keep learning about
Oh,
getting better and better boundaries. I feel like I almost see myself internally as this like border guard that's like level, like just keeps getting promoted. Like, like the boundaries get better, but I also get nice. I've spent a lot of time studying how to set them nicely.
right.
It's a big deal to me. I see a lot of people in our industry get this in this black and white, kind of like barriers, not like like Pema Chodron writes about boundaries, not barriers. Like,
Right.
so it's just been a very interesting, anyway, that's a long answer to a short question, but managing your time is everything.
It's everything. Well, and I read a book, and I mean, I sometimes feel like I've read so many books on running a business. Like, how do I keep having things? And I'm like, duh, like, where were you, Elise? How is this the first time you're hearing about this? But I read a book recently, very recently, and it's called Buy Back Your Time. And I think it was written by a guy named Dan Martell. Absolutely game changing, like seriously game changing. Like everyone I meet now must read this book because it has revolutionized how I think about so many things. And I mean, really talking about, and I mean, I had a more flimsy process of this, but like about creating your perfect week and creating your calendar in such a way. So I literally went through, my office is probably like dying right now. And it says like, Elise, water flowers, Elise, exercise, Elise,
Awesome.
eat, Elise, and spend
Awesome.
time with Doug. Like it has this whole thing, like
Good.
all the things. It's pretty powerful when you put it all on there because you're like, oh, there is not so much time in this day for
That's
me to
right.
do all these things. So then when I'm seeing that, I mean, I start circling those things and I'm like, that is moving off me. Like, who am I delegating that to? That is no
Yeah.
longer in my world. And
Yeah.
so, but I mean, this is an exercise that we have to do, I mean, on the regular. Like,
I totally agree. I think it's like, it's such a fundamental where the rubber meets the road kind of
yes.
conversation. And it's so, I mean, I would think you and I are very alike. And I keep visualizing, I need to draw this and put this on social. The seesaw. And on one end is we want to be very generous and live in abundance and help others and be a go-giver and all these great things. On the other side of the seesaw is being a feminist and you're and being an attorney, and like your time is valuable. You've got really amazing strategy skills. You've got a, brain that can, write and speak and persuade and do all these important high level skills. And so, and then in the middle to me is kind of your ethics, your values, where, how are you going to make that seesaw balance and do it? Like for me, it's so important that I still stay close to kindness and compassion,
Oh, yeah.
but that I don't give it all away. Like I've tipped that way in many, many long chapters of my life. And, and then there's others who go the other way, everything's about their value and them making money. And I don't want to be like that. Like, I don't want to give it all away, but I don't. Yeah. So I had an interesting experience the last few weeks. I don't think I've gotten to tell you about. One of these colleagues I befriended was hearing about a new offer that I want to put out within the business. And so she wanted me to speak with an entrepreneur she's close to who's retiring. And the idea was that I might be a good successor for that person, and that their offer might become a part of Interconnected Us or relate in some way, but that it really aligns with me. So I make friends with this business owner, and we have a number of conversations that get, progressively longer and longer over the course of 3-4 weeks, I'd say. And I mean, one of them, one of the final ones was the second to last one, was so good that I had to take off the rest of the day. I was so excited about all the possibilities and and realized that we had kind of the conversations had gone so deep about connecting about our values that we hadn't gone back to the fundamentals of the business, this business opportunity. And, is there a win-win?
Right.
And as it turns out, there's not. Like I finally, after that last meeting, I was like, God, I lost a whole day where I was going to spend the morning on my, sales for my business and do, get all the important deep work tasks done, and blew it all off because, it was such a valuable contact and so on. And I just was like, oh my God, I didn't assert a boundary. Like we're only doing business if there's a business opportunity. We're not doing we spent, she probably got 8 or 12 hours of my daytime heavy, brain space in total. And it was but the good part was I woke up to it. Right. And I won't do it again. And I set a boundary. Like I was so proud of the boundary that I printed that email
Oh,
because I
good.
did it really nicely. And she wrote back with such grace. And it was just like, yeah, we don't have yeah, now that you say what you need or restate what you need, I can hear you. And we can't, we can't do that. So, we should stay friends and, check in down the road and so on. And it was like, I was really proud. I have an email where I print out like emails where I
Oh,
like get myself to a new level. And I was like, oh, this is a keeper. That's really good.
I think you have to do that. I'm going to talk about another book. That is something I think we struggle with as women lawyers. We are constantly looking to that gap ahead of us rather than turning our head back and looking at the gain. And that
Totally.
gap and
I
gain
know.
book is, again, one of those. I was like, well,
Totally agree.
I'm like, Elise, why have you not done this? Like,
I know. I'm totally with you. I mean, that book, I was like, could we have a call within the business where we're getting women together and just like tooting our own horns? Like, how would I set that up so that that call would be, because if you haven't read the book, you're not understanding what the value is. It just sounds like you would dial in to brag, but it's such a self-esteem. It's such, I mean, setting aside if I'll do that within the business, like it's so valuable to count your wins. I
we start our leadership team meetings in our office with our gains, and
I
it
love
is
it.
powerful when we go
Yeah,
through, even though we meet every single week. I mean, it's amazing what happens every single week. The wins, and
totally.
some of them are huge, others of them are very small, but they are powerful. It might be like somebody took the Wednesday afternoon off to spend time with their son, and they're going to, work on Sunday, but just enjoying that flexibility we offer. I mean,
I
that's a huge
totally agree
win.
with that. Yes, that's a huge win. I mean, since I started the business, I've been protecting more and more my need to exercise, which I'd overridden for like 15 years, like my marriage, raising young kids, my divorce years. I mean, I really, other than the occasional walk with a girlfriend to vent about whatever, there was no consistent regular exercise. And now swimming is like really sacred. And, just getting like the emotional support I need for this or that is is sacred time. And like, that's a win. That's a huge win
Oh,
that is so leveraged.
huge.
Right? Like
I
it's
mean,
not like a huge sale. It's not the kind of thing I'm going to get a big pat on the back from, whatever, but it's like patting
I
my own back. It's
I
fantastic.
bet many times when you're swimming, and if you're a follow the black line girl and you literally swim laps, you will come up with brilliant ideas along that black line. And
Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, I have found, swimming is one, other running, just through the years, to be such great opportunities to really think about things, and
Yeah.
have real mental breakthroughs.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny. Like sometimes I'm consciously swimming, thinking, and other times I'm trying not to think. Like sometimes
Oh
I'm
yeah.
really trying to notice the bubbles and,
Yeah.
the tech, the water, how my body feels and all
Right.
that, because I'm really trying to like get a brain break. But I agree with you. Like today I swam laps this morning and, absolutely. I was kind of like going over my list of all the things that, like recent wins and also things that I've got mostly resolved in my mind, but not completely, like just some decisions and kind of like solidifying them.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's magical. And it's so funny. Like one of the other women in the circle recently was just talking about how like, God, it's everything that we were told to do during preschool, like exercise, nap, eat your vegetables, like be nice to your friends. like, yeah.
Yeah,
So
solid advice. Well,
solid.
it's funny. The only time in all the years that I have, been doing this life sport that we do, failing, succeeding, all the things, tennis is the only exercise that has allowed me to actually shut off my brain, because I must follow that little ball around. I cannot think about
Oh,
anything. Tennis is
wow.
the most rejuvenating exercise as far as truly shutting off my brain. And so I just
Wow.
wanted to put it out there in case you ever would consider one of those handball kind of sports, because I bet like softball might be similar, pickleball, all
Yeah.
the, but and it dawned on me after I would played tennis probably about 6 months to a year. And I was like, what is this about this? I was like addicted to tennis. And
Yeah.
I realized, I was like, I cannot think about it. And at the time, I was mostly just rearing my children. I couldn't think about the kids. I couldn't think about each kid's problem that I was supposed to be, trying to
Yeah.
work through or whatever. All I could think about was that little ball and making sure I was ready to hit it.
Oh,
And
I love that you got so absorbed in it. That's magical.
yeah, it was
That's magical.
amazing. It was,
Are, and now, are you a dancer? Have you ever? I feel like you might be a
well,
dancer. You're not?
I did ballet, but as a young child, like,
Yeah.
till like I
Yeah.
was about 13. And then I went to sports, played like soccer,
Oh,
volleyball.
oh, got it. Okay. Okay. I didn't really do team sports. I'm more like yoga, swimming, aerobics class, like that kind of
Yeah.
thing. So it's like tennis, like, come on, there's like a ball and rules. Like,
Right.
like, how's that going to work? I barely do like kickball. Like love. I don't even know what that is.
Oh my gosh, you
Um,
might love it though. You might really love
I
it
might really love it. I totally, yeah, I
because
know.
it
Just the other day,
really
my
is
kid and I
that
were talking.
turn off switch,
Yeah.
and
Anything that turns it off, honestly. I mean, that's another thing that I think women lawyers or all lawyers, it's like that constant, I'm going to intellectualize everything going on in my life. And even if they've read all this, stuff in the zeitgeist about, needing to turn off your mind, like not protecting that time for that enough to really develop that skill set, or just get into spaces like a tennis court, or for me, a meditation cushion or whatever, where you're like really doing what you can to quiet. Like it's such an important shift.
it's huge. Well, the thought, I mean, meditation is something I love. I can only do guided meditation though. I'm one of those people that I can't do silent meditation. I'm pathetic. My brain is just pathetic.
Elise, I just have to say this. That's like saying like, well, I can't play cello because I sat in front of a cello, 5 times and I didn't master it. Like it's called practice. Like you're extremely normal. I can tell you that we're all like that at the Zen Center. Like, and trying, and the constant messaging from the people who are more senior with their practices, that like all of that self-criticism,
Right.
like there it is again. Like it's just in another platform, just showing up
Right.
like, oh, I can't, not good at this, I can't concentrate, this is hard, why have I been at this so many years? I mean, there's people who've been working at it for decades. I mean, like
Wow.
oh yeah, there's multiple people that, I mean, in a huge segment of the membership that's like hippies that are now in their 70s and they've been working
Yeah.
at it for decades, and they're not all like some, but it's not about, I don't know, I don't want to go on a rabbit hole about Zen here, but it's a challenge. It's really a challenge. Concentration is exactly the opposite of what our culture is
Oh,
training our brains to do, right? All this stupid multitasking,
please.
rewards. Like it's you're rewiring back to a healthier way. You're
Right.
rewiring.
Exactly. One of my sons said the other day, I mean, randomly, he is like, we have created a whole society of people that can't do anything for more than 40 seconds. He goes, it's
Right.
really wild. And I was
It's
like,
really wild.
it is
Yeah.
really wild. And
Do you
somebody
find that?
also,
Yeah. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
somebody also said to me, and I thought it was interesting, we talk about not reading as much anymore, like not reading books and whatever, but the amount of information we are taking in, they said it was almost like reading The Hobbit every single day, with the amount.
Wow.
And I was like, oh my gosh.
Wow. So this is a question I've got for you, so I
Yeah.
can interview the interviewer. Something my shrink said to me was, you need to read less. Here's another challenge in the industry. She said, you need to read less nonfiction and really consider, or she didn't say it that way, but she said, I really would like you to consider reading more fiction, because, and it like took me years to understand why, no matter how much she talked, I like wasn't ready to really hear it. But like this notion that I need to be productive
Totally.
all the time.
Completely. Oh my God.
Yeah. Yeah. Like,
That
do
is
you read
an
fiction?
I do, but
You do.
it's just recent. I mean,
Yeah.
in my build my firm stage, so, for the last like 8 years, no
Yeah.
way would I have read fiction because I had too much to do. I had
Yeah.
too much to learn in my mind that because really to develop and to build your firm, I mean, the main thing I was doing was developing myself as a leader, which meant
Yep.
like breaking down a lot of those, bad habits and things that I needed
Right.
to work on in that inner work. And so, trying to juggle 4, 6 kids, depending on, who was in our home at the time, like
Yeah,
that's a lot. Do you know what I mean? There was
totally.
not a lot of time for fiction, TV. I mean, there's an entire, 15 years that I did not watch a TV show. Like, so
I
there's
totally
shows
get it.
I've
Yeah,
never
we
even
are
finished.
aligned.
Yeah,
Yeah,
like
we are aligned there. Like I don't understand when like I hear busy people talk about like to me it's such an inefficient way to unwind. Like get outside.
yeah, I can't do it. I'm not a
I
TV
can't do
girl.
it either. I can't do it either. Lots of campfires
Yeah.
lately in my backyard. I'm
Well,
loving
which
it.
is lovely.
I'm loving it. Like a couple weeks ago, I had a bunch of good friends. We just sat around. A lot of them didn't, I'm an introvert in some ways. And so a lot of my friends are one-to-one friendships. They don't know each
Right.
other. And also I've gone through changes. So there's that too. And so just like bringing these wonderful people together and they were all so lit up by each other. And it was just like, I love making connections. This is what I love to do, and it just, and then also the fire, like, this is accurate or not. My brother had said to me that like, um, that there's like brain science to it, that staring at a fire does something like very good for our brains. And it was just so lovely.
Oh,
The
yeah.
dog made her rounds and sat on
Yeah.
everyone's lap, and it was just so nice.
I love that. Well, and I love for you that you're in that stage too, where your children are old enough where, both when they're there with you, they're old enough to be, entertaining themselves, but also then they have that time with their dad, which
Yeah,
is really positive and
yeah,
allows you to have some really good quality time. And as a divorce attorney, trying to explain that to people when they're like, I need all the custody. And I'm like, no, you don't. I promise one day you are going to not
yeah,
be happy if you have all the custody. Like,
yeah, yeah, yeah. I think I'm right, and I understood from a very, very, very early on that like 50-50 would be just fine. Like,
right,
but I know a lot of others who really struggled with not having the
oh
kids
yeah,
all the time. And like I think because of whatever, who I am, my family, my childhood, like there's always been this rich life of Rachel doing Rachel's thing that had nothing to do with motherhood. And I yeah, it's yeah, there's so much to say there. There's so much to say there. I'm experiencing motherhood at a renewed, deeper level lately. That's just really great too.
totally.
And yeah, yeah. I don't think it's because of the business. I think it's more because of some of the inner work that we've
Right.
talked about. But it's unbelievable. I feel like I'm seeing my kids' needs and desires and strengths on deeper and deeper levels, and our interactions are just getting more and more important. I mean, it's also probably because of their ages. Like we're
Yeah.
discussing things like they're transitioning to being men. And it's like there's so much I got to make sure they know.
Right.
And I also feel like, oh, the time is finite. Like I really want to, not I need to. I'm trying to get away from saying that, but I just really want to build this book of memories, and I know that you had such a joy mothering and others that I talk with. It's so inspiring. So I feel like as a single mom, sometimes I have gone through big stretches of being overwhelmed and harried and so on. And like, just really like doing what I've needed to do to be present and, be present, be kinder to myself, be kinder to others. Like, it's been such a journey.
Well, I mean, that's so powerful for your boys to see. I mean, so
Yeah.
powerful. I think.
Yeah. Thank you. Thank you. Can I tell you a quick story?
Yeah.
I had a conflict with one of my kids. He's a camp counselor for the first time at the JCC down the street. And I said to him, because I need to spend time on the business, like you're going to be biking to camp.
Right.
And he flipped out on me. And I was like, part of me was, like, who the heck are you? This is my right to say, to dictate how you're going to do this and so on, this very top down approach. And while I still think that's correct on some level, like I'm still his mom, not his chauffeur and so on. what I was ignoring was, so he gets furious. He gives me silent treatment for a couple hours. I've done the work, so I no longer am kind of like begging for him to forgive me and so on. I'm kind of just doing my own thing and finally like getting okay with the fact that he's in emotional pain. I don't have to go fix it right away. And we come together, but because I've studied nonviolent communication, we now are building this book of experiences where we reconcile our differences. And we sat on the couch and we took out the book because there's a framework there that the kids still need to see for a reminder. And we each said like what we needed and so on. And it was just like, I mean, it didn't end with return to how it was before. It ended better. It was like rupture and repair, but the repair makes you, more grounded in each other. It's like now we're safer to disagreeing is going to be safer and safer because we have this way to really see each other and communicate really healthfully.
Oh, I just think that is, I mean, game changing to be able to sit down and have that kind of conversation. I mean, to really understand, like, why was he flipping out about the thing? And, what did you need in that moment or with your plan? But I mean, just being able to have that communication in a safe way, imagine how that is going to change his brain as he's having conflicts. Do you know what I mean?
Totally. Oh, totally. And as it relates to just narrowly, he and I over the rest of our lives, I mean, his reason for being outraged was, Mom, I hate biking. So why, he was just feeling really unseen. And like, that's something that I'm sensitive about when I feel like people in my inner world don't see me, don't get me, like that is very painful. And so, I don't know if he just inherited my trauma or whatever, or if this is a common human experience. Like it was incredible to go through that little exercise together and to like, just have this aha, like it's not about the biking. Like from my perspective, it was about my convenience so I could focus on my business.
Yeah.
It was just about, it wasn't about trying to strong arm him, control him.
Right.
It was really just about my own. And he's like, well, if I arrange a carpool, would that work? And we started to explore like other resolutions where, that might be the win-win.
Right.
And it was just, oh God, I'm so grateful that, I mean, that's something else I would love to bring to women lawyers or just to all lawyers is nonviolent. I mean, I have story after story after story of how a conflict that used to go one way, went another way when the other party is willing to engage, and then there's somewhere it's the other party's not willing to do their side, but I'll do mine. And it's good enough to save myself, really.
Well, and I mean, I talk about it a lot in co-parenting, when I'm working with very high conflict co-parents, I'm like, it takes one of you to get this down pat. And if one of you can get it down pat, the amount of decrease in the conflict is pretty noticeable and so noticeable that the children will be impacted, I mean, positively by the lack of conflict and then, not negatively because only one of you will be doing the thing. And
that's totally right.
That tends to go down too, because after a while, doing that thing on your own doesn't bring the same joy to the person who's, used to engaging in the conflict and helping people to understand. I mean, I'm like, it takes one sane parent to make your child's psychology better. Like, so if we can,
I love that.
Get this under control.
I
mean, we can really make an inroad, positively into your children.
Oh yeah. I think it's an amazing skill set. I mean, it's helped me with friendships with my family. I mean, I love this. I mean, I need to tell this story more publicly, but I had this, and it's a quick thing. My father said to me about a year and a half ago, and I studied nonviolent communication maybe 3 years ago. So he said to me a year or so ago, the way you're parenting the 14-year-old, like, I just think you're acting really, you're controlling him too much. He needs more space. And at first, the lawyer in me, the feminist lawyer is like, oh, that's rich, like, where'd I learn that? And I was just super defensive and angry. And, but because I'd studied nonviolent communication, I was like, you really care about his independence, don't you? And he's like, I do. And I was like, I care about it too. And we had made a connection. So then, the natural next thing to say is like, either I'll think about the particular behavior change he wanted to see in me, or how I could accomplish this kid getting more independent on my terms, but it created connection where, it was just because I had studied how to bring empathy into that conflict.
Right. Oh yeah. I mean, don't we all say it's all in the communication? I mean,
It's amazing.
it's
I know, but I
amazing.
mean, do you see lawyers studying this anywhere? Like, to me, this is so needed.
Oh my God. I mean, I think law school, I mean, this is a whole nother conversation. We'll have to have another podcast.
Yeah.
Law school literally should become like a year and a half, maybe two. And then could we put a year on of practical learning? I mean, all the
Yes.
emotional intelligence,
Oh,
communication, how to run a
yes.
business. I mean, how to navigate, the things we lawyers do navigate all the time, and nobody how to write a billing entry. I mean, I have lawyers, they'll
Yeah.
come out of law school and, they'll write this billing entry and I'm thinking, oh, okay, we got to start from scratch here, but I mean,
I never learned how. Yeah.
nobody teaches us how to do that. And
Yeah.
it's just, I mean, and I think there's so much around wellness and how do we, maintain our mental health in
Yes.
this profession. I mean,
Yes. I mean, do you think that the billable hours makes fuels the workaholism that's so pervasive? Like, do you think um that's what drives people being so addicted to work, and their inability to slow down is just
oh
the
yeah.
money, 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 money?
Oh, definitely. And I think just depending on people's hourly requirements and what it looks like I think as law firm owners, we have to pull these hours down. Like we are creating these models where, and especially obviously in big law, where these, very senior partners are just making absurd amounts of money,
Right.
on the backs of their associates. And it's just, without regard to their associates' mental health. I mean, when I see people with, billable hour requirements, 2000, 2200. I mean, in my prior life as an insurance defense attorney, we had a 2400-hour requirement. That was like completely normal. I mean, now I'm like, what? I mean, my attorneys are more like in the 1350 kind of range. And
Mhm.
do you know
Mhm.
what I mean? Like in that's definitely doable. I mean, I can see that they can get their work done, all of it, non-billable and billable, in 40 hours. I mean, very easily. And I don't mean to say easy, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Very like no problem. And I mean, with working, 44-ish weeks a year, like that's a pretty, I think, solid, life work integration where you're, able to do the things. But even also as a law firm owner, like having people tell me what hours work for them, the insanity that I dictate everybody's hours and make it where it's uniform. To me, that's so insane. Can we not have nuance? Like,
Right.
why do we not look at the life cycle of people? Like as a young lawyer with no children, you might have a different energy level and a different time. When you're at home with 3 kids and 2 of them have special needs, you might have
Wow.
different, you might need something different. And in our firm, we roll with that. Like we are up and
Oh.
down and people come and go, with their hourly requirements.
And so I'm so curious to hear, like, I mean, every time we're talking about this topic, I'm so curious to hear if you're leveraging yourself yet and getting and influencing the profession. Like, this is so important. I'm so excited to hear others, model use the Buie firm ownership model and, the Buie billable hour model and, all of it. Like, it's just incredible.
Yeah. Well, no, I have not done, and you know this. I'm in my year of peace. And so
Mhm.
I am
Mhm.
definitely, we talk about boundaries. Like I have been pretty intentional in
Yep.
2023 of just like kind of bringing things in and figuring out like what is next, what will next look like. And really just enjoying some peace because 2022 was just kind of rough. And that was a big deal for me to just admit that
I think
2022
it's great.
was
Yeah,
rough.
you're such a positive person that I would imagine it's hard to spit out that it was a hard year, but to find the courage to spit it out and then further courage to protect the time to heal
Yeah.
is heroic. And that's another example of how you're a leader. I mean, that's not an easy, that's a win that needs to be celebrated. That's awesome.
Isn't that a funny win? But I agree with you. I do
Yeah.
think having
Yeah.
this, being very intentional has been, I think, really important. And I think it's been good for my firm too, like by us not pushing hard in certain areas, it's given everybody some peace. And I mean, we've had people in our firm, I mean, somebody who lost like a significant other. I feel like we were in a better spot to kind of,
Mm.
deal with that even as a
Hmm.
firm. Like we were in a more peaceful state, and we created this like PTO volunteer, like, donate policy thing, because I initially, when her partner passed away, she was like, okay, well, I'm going to come back to work, on this. I was like, what? I'm like, no, you're not. I was like, you need like time and
Yeah.
space. And, but then there's all this employment lawyer stuff. Like, if I give her all this time, like, then what does that look like? So, I had to follow all the laws of what I can do and not do. Because my natural inclination was just like, it's fine, take off, it'll be fine. But we created this donation policy, but then I was able to match all the donations. So to, double the impact of what,
Yeah.
and that was so powerful to see the people in the office be able to offer to their coworker
Wow.
their time, their money. I mean, like cash donations, time
Yeah.
donations. And
Uh,
it was so powerful, and it gave me so much gratitude to be able to match those. I was just like absolutely tickled pink
oh
to,
my God. And I mean, from where I sit, the courage that you went off on your own and created this company that has, your amazing values and like all of the bushwhacking you had to do to create policies where none exists, like where you've had to build something that, is so rare in our industry, if at all. I mean, I have to imagine I don't know, like who you look up to. I mean, it's incredible. It's like incredible. And yeah, I'm grateful you exist. Like, I think it's incredible.
well, I
That's
so
not just because you're the pod
appreciate,
host.
yeah, no, and I so appreciate you spending your time with us today and talking to us about Interconnected Us. And I hope one thing that I would love to do, if it's okay with you, is just put the link to Interconnected Us in our
Sure.
show notes so people
Love it.
can reach out. And I mean, there might be other moms that would like to hear more about what you're doing and how to get involved in a mastermind. What is the best way for somebody to reach you if they want to reach out and, learn more about Interconnected Us?
Absolutely. They can connect with me on social. I'm on LinkedIn and Facebook. They also can go to our website and just, if they're interested in what they see, they can apply right there, and that'll
Oh,
kick them towards setting up an appointment with me. So any
perfect.
of those would be great. And a friend of yours is a friend of mine, including all your pod listeners.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate it. And I hope you have a great rest of your day.